Thank you, everyone, for patience and racing in at the last minute. I call to order the Lynchburg Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, July 28, 2021. The first order of business is the approval of minutes from the July 14, 2021 Planning Commission meeting. Are there any additions or corrections?
I move that they be approved.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, and thank you, Eve, as always, for putting those together, and anyone else working on those. We appreciate it. Our second item is old business, revisiting the petition of Margaret D. Gillian to rezone approximately 1 5/500 acres located at 902 Old Grays Mill Road from R2 low medium density residential district to R3 medium density residential district to allow the construction of 4 duplexes and associated parking lot. Rachel?
Members of Planning Commission, those of you that were at the July 14th meeting will recall a public hearing regarding this rezoning to allow the 4 duplexes was held, and the item was tabled at the petitioner's, the representative's request, rather, because they desired more time to proffer substantial compliance with this concept plan as submitted. So that proffer has since been signed and submitted. So the item is back before you again today for your consideration. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. Just as a reminder, since we did conduct that public hearing, one is not necessary today.
Okay, thank you. Is it the petitioner here who would like to come up and add anything to our previous discussions? Okay, great. Great, thank you. And even though we're not officially doing a public meeting, I'm just going to say if there's anyone from the public who wishes to speak for or against it. Otherwise, we will close that part and revisit our discussions. And I think all 4 of us were here 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
So we talked at an extent, and I think the proffer that was added was basically that they were going to restrict themselves to the proposed site plan, I believe, right? And
That's
limit
correct.
all the other possible uses.
Yes, they proffered substantial concept plan compliance, so that means this layout is pretty much locking them in. There'd be maybe slight variation, but this would be what would be constructed on the property.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. I was going to ask a question on substantial compliance. So what that picture shows is
Yes.
what it's going to look like.
That's the standard language we like to use. We say
Okay.
substantial compliance because, things might shift here or there, some landscaping, things like that. But the general layout, meaning where the buildings are and where the parking lot is
Okay.
and where the entrance is taken from, would be required going forward.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I think our general discussion revolved around the points that one side of Old Grays Mill is pretty heavily built up with a lot of different uses, and then the other side is still a lot of single use or single family homes, and that's where this petition is located. And I know, Cham, you mentioned Old Grays Mill it's kind of already past that threshold. Others had concern that there was still a characterization of the neighborhood that could be disrupted.
Well, on the one side that still has neighborhoods, I mean, what's next? Are we just going to allow these roads to become duplex roads or whatever? What happens to those neighborhoods is a concern to me, because what we're basically doing is saying, okay, it really doesn't matter. We're going to allow people to go back and start putting in duplexes or whatever else that needs to go in there.
Well, I think it'll look like Leesville Road. If you remember, Leesville Road had very much the same flavor at one time, and now, of course, it's a pass-through area. But the good thing is the houses that are the next row back, so to speak, those neighborhoods, I mean, those have remained, intact and not been compromised. So, I mean, that's the good thing about the way this site plan looks, is I don't think it's going to negatively impact. I can't remember what the name of the street is there that goes back into that neighborhood, but I'm sure, because none of those houses on that side look like they're being particularly well cared for. And I'm sure this is the first of a number of these matters that are going to come forth. I think the representative referred to the last 2 weeks ago that he said a couple of neighbors have already talked to him about the feasibility of some, some changes with their property.
One and there's another one which
Yeah.
was not listed.
So,
But no, that means, okay, we're gonna start going down the road and these houses will turn into duplexes or whatever, all the way down there till you cut off to go down to Taylor Brothers.
I feel like, as you say, the horse has already left the barn, but I think that making this essentially an R3, I mean, it's a conditional use, but is that what we're doing, making it R3?
Yes.
Okay. But is it, it just extends that transition from R3 to R2 across the road, as it is on the other side of Hillview Drive already. And I don't think it's going to change the character of the road much. I think that it probably will continue going on out the road toward Taylor Brothers, but I don't think it's going to, as Cham said, I don't think it's going to affect the neighborhood down the streets, because they're behind it. They're somewhat separate. And, they are quieter neighborhoods. They're not on a busy road, so it's just a different animal being on Old Graves Mill Road or being on Hillview Drive.
Yeah, I went back and drove Old Grays Mill Road from Kroger down to the Humane Society. And just after our last meeting, I went back and did it the second time. And I mean, it definitely is. It's a tale of two sides of the road. There's a church on the right-hand side, and that's it. Everything else is single-family houses. And my concern is, yeah, sure, one petition's not going to change it too much, but opening the door up for future ones, and there was definitely interest in that discussed at our last meeting. There is a difference in those two sides of the road. And so it's not something that I'm adamantly opposed to or would be upset if this were to happen, but I would be concerned about the long-term ramifications. So.
And I'm just looking at a satellite view of the area going down towards the Humane Society or whatever. And it's just,
And while you're doing that, Mark, I do think this just brings attention back to that road. And we had mentioned, I believe it was Region 2000 did a public hearing on Grays Mill Road, and this drew a lot of questions. And so there's definitely interest in the residents there in traffic issues and stuff. So it's certainly something to keep on the city's radar.
and there's a railroad track. I mean, are we saying we're going to give up everything to the railroad track? Of course, the other side of the railroad track is a little bit more recent construction. And, you know, another thing that I was looking at was this house was built in 1925. It was annexed. And it was annexed and zoned R2, which basically tied their hands that they couldn't have duplexes on it. And perhaps it should have been zoned R1 where they could have done something else with it. And I think they had their hands tied when it was zoned initially as R2, because I've been working this thing over my head, like what else can they do with it? You know, what is a by right development that they could do on it? Had it been R1, there was something else they could have done, but it was zoned in as R2 with no duplexes, which basically ties it up. And I really don't have a great answer.
Yeah, yeah.
But enough. I've been by it, looked at it, and I've gone back and gone over, reading this, gone back, rereading all the minutes and everything. It's just like, I'm really at a loss to say, okay, well, we'll go ahead, make it R3. We'll have 4 duplexes.
think it's very telling, though, as I think somebody pointed out at the last meeting, that there are no neighbors here to speak against it.
Yeah, you're right, and it just, unless you're going to do something really insane type construction, that's what someone done one in their backyard, a lot of people really don't pay attention, don't really want to come to this. And it bothers me, it concerns me, like, okay, I mean, does it have to be right next to you before you have a voice in what's going on? So, you know, in my frustration, I really can't, in good conscience, say no to this. I mean, it's a shame to see a house be torn down, but it's just going to sit there. It's going to fall down on its own in time. So I feel like my hand is tied to say, okay, you got R3.
Planning Commission, if it helps to hear a little bit of the Planning Division's thoughts on it. You know, this does represent something that we call in the planning world as the missing middle. You know, we talk a lot about single-family development. We see a lot of rezonings to higher density, bigger apartment complexes, but something we don't talk about is the missing middle. We don't hear that much. And those are these slightly more dense, yet not as intense as, you know, something like a big apartment complex. Things like duplexes, triplexes, you know, small scale apartments sometimes. So, you know, we hear a lot about, you know, Lynchburg doesn't need more apartments, this and that. You know, this is one way where we can accomplish trying to meet the housing demand without doing it in a way that is as impactful as something like a high-density residential development. And you were also talking about, you know, what happens down the road. Does this set precedent, that sort of thing? I mean, I think you'd have to look at those on a case-by-case basis. But here you've got something that has a very nice layout. They've proffered it so that it will be developed in this layout. It limits the driveways. I think you were talking about the impact to the neighborhood. I think this layout is trying to maintain the integrity of a neighborhood, putting the parking lot in the rear, making it look more similar to sort of more blend. I would say it blends in better with the parking lot in the back. So I think you could take those things into consideration on your vote.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Someone want to make a motion to bring it to a vote?
Also move.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm going to say nay. I'll be opposed to it. But 3-1, we are recommending approval to council, and they will revisit this topic, I believe, on Tuesday, August 10th. And I would invite folks to review our discussions from both of our planning commission meetings. It may not seem like we talked about it a lot tonight, but we spent a lot of time 2 weeks ago talking about it. So I think between the two meetings, we covered the issue pretty well.
I certainly hope City Council will review our comments.
Yep, it gives them something to think about.
Yes.
All right, thank you all. Thank you for attending and for participating in this. Our next item, new business, is the consideration of naming a new entrance road at 1900, 1950, and 1970 Enterprise Drive as Poplar Forest Parkway.
Ms. Allison Ramsey, President and CEO for Thomas Jefferson's Poplar Forest, is petitioning to name a new entrance road as Poplar Forest Parkway. The road will connect their property in Bedford County to Enterprise Drive and will run through 1900, 1950, and 1970 Enterprise Drive. The Technical Review Committee reviewed the petition on July 20th and had no comments of concern. It is brought before the Planning Commission for a vote because it is not within a subdivision.
Great. And Ms. Ramsey, if there's anything you'd like to add to the petition, you are more than welcome to come up. Okay. I'm going to assume we have no members from the public, so we're good there. And we can, If that was a public part of the meeting, we'll close that down and have a discussion and ask questions.
I can't wait to see it.
I know. I think we were all part of the original rezoning petitions a few years ago, and I think we're all very excited about this happening. I still get lost going to Poplar Forest, so I can't wait for it to open up. And the name makes sense, so.
I just hope you can get the GPS devices to get calibrated for the right thing, so.
I do have one question about addressing. If I can come up.
If you want to come up, just so you get on the microphone, and go ahead, if we have a sign-in sheet, just for the record.
We actually don't, because
Okay, sorry, yeah, you're fine then.
Yeah, just the only question is, once the name is approved by city council, what is the process for the E911 addressing? Or do we have any say or, in what the number is, or how does that work?
I believe that would need to go through Kevin Henry, our zoning administrator,
Okay.
and the assessor's office.
Okay.
I believe at one time, I remember 1776.
Oh, well, yeah, that would be
thrown
ideal.
out. Okay.
Yep.
So, yes, staff can let you know
Okay.
the process on that.
That's in Camp, or Bedford, right?
It's in the city.
Oh, is
The
it?
entrances.
The entrance is in the
entrance,
city.
so you want it in-
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you go through Kevin.
Kevin Henry, okay. All right, great. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Great, thank you. So we take a vote on that. Do we have a motion to approve that renaming?
So moved.
Second. All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, great, thank you, and good luck with that process moving forward. We're looking forward to it opening up. You bet. Second item of new business is also a naming one. Consideration of naming the streets in the Blackwater Run Phase 1A subdivision as Elmwood Avenue and Courtney Springs Drive. Looks like this is just for commenting.
Mr. Michael Cassidy of Piedmont Surveyors is petitioning to name new streets in the Blackwater Run Phase 1A subdivision as Elmwood Avenue and Courtney Springs Drive. The Technical Review Committee reviewed this petition on July 20th and had no comments of concern. Again, as you said, it is for comment.
So the Third Street runway court isn't being proposed right now?
I think we previously visited that one.
Oh, we did that? Oh, okay.
I think that was in the first phase.
Okay. No, I have no problem with the name, certainly.
Yep, I think it's great. All right, great. Any other new items? I have just a couple things. Mr. Martin mentioned this earlier, just to get it on the minutes. Although she's not here, congratulations to Victoria Glasgow for moving on to graduate school, pursuing her educational studies, and to Eve Morgenthaler for taking over Victoria's place. And thanks to Eve for all of her work providing our minutes and keeping things organized and running. It's been incredibly smooth over the past few years, and we appreciate that. And we look forward to having you be more actively involved in the process as we move forward. Yep. And then the only thing I want to mention is, as we get through the rest of the summer, is just keep Eve probably informed of vacation travel plans, so that, and I think we're good at that. But it never hurts if you know you're going to be gone to let them know ahead of time.
Just so, I'll be out of town 14th to the 28th of August, so that meeting that we would have in late August, I'm not physically going to be here in town, so.
And it sounds like the 14th, we dodged a bullet because there was nothing on that, right? So we're good to go there. Great. All right. If there are no other items, we have a motion to adjourn? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, no one's opposed. Thank you all very much. Thank you, staff, for hanging around and getting things up and running.